All right, we're on hole number 6. We're at Beth Page Black number 6. This is the Ryder Cup, and see who is going to be on the contest next. Welcome back to Pars and Pours Golf-Centric Whiskey Channel, where both are very social and they both need to be shared. We are doing the Ryder Cup. This is hole number 6, and what this is an 18-hole format. So there'll be 18 contests to get down to the number 1 rye, the rye for the Ryder Cup. Get it? Okay, we've gotten through that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Ryder Cup, a little bit about the contestants that we're going to have, and Beth Page Black as well. So let's get started. So Beth Page Black, let's just talk about that one. That is a desired golfing location that most people will lay in their cars and try and get on. It is extraordinarily hard even for a municipal golf course, and has hosted some very, very, very important golf tournaments. And this one coming up obviously is the Ryder Cup. So we're on home turf this time around, but don't let home turf fool you. Both teams are pretty strong. So what is hole number 6? Hole number 6 happens to be the number 1 handicapped hole on the course, meaning it's the toughest hole on the course, and it's a slight dog leg to the left. And if you look, the landing area is just forward of 2 sand traps guarding the apex of the turn. So if you miss your drive, you're in the sand, right? And then once you get past that, there's a very narrow, very small green, and it looks like it's got 2 clamps of sand traps just waiting to gobble that thing up. So shot making is going to be paramount in this, right? So you got to be precise, you got to be long, and you got to be accurate. And you know we love golf like that. But in this particular case, if you're off just a little bit, you're going to get penalized, and particularly on the number 1 hole in the course. Now at 462. I would imagine that it'll probably, when they set the tees way, way back, it's probably going to play a little bit more. So a 300-yard drive may put you right in trouble, right? It might put you in some trouble. Okay, so the Ryder Cup, the actual Ryder Cup is a formatted. So when you get into normal tournament play you get to see on TV, it's all about strokes, right? You get the lowest number of strokes wins the tournament. Well, in this particular instance, there's 3 different contests that are held over 3 different days. And one is match play, which is the very end. It's a 1-on-1 tournament. Then there is a better ball, which is a 2-on-2 tournament. Whoever hits the better ball, or it could call it alternate shot for that matter. And then the last one is a foursomes. And the foursomes is a 2-on-2 tournament, and whoever gets the lowest score wins on that one. So it's a very intriguing, and there's only 14.5 points, and whoever has the most points wins. So you can split a hole, so you can have half points, but honestly, what we want to do is just win clean out, right? That's the whole idea of this Ryder Cup. All right, and which brings us to our teams on there. So first on the tee box today, and we've seen them once before, but now they have a new strong court game. There is Hard Truth. This is a sweet mash rye from Nashville, Indiana. They're a new up-and-coming kind of company. They got started in 2015, but they really weren't making whiskey at that point. At 2018, that's when they actually started stepping into their new property, 320-plus acres of just God's country, actually, and they have an extraordinarily good setup. We ventured there recently, and they have an ATV tour, they have a tiki tour, they have a distillery tour. Very, very nice setup, and lots of different products to certainly find something that will fit a palate that's coming to visit. Now, on the outside chance that you don't like ryes or bourbons, they also make some rums, and they do make some vodkas, mostly all flavored. So there's something for everybody, and they're very, very friendly. They're really taking up into barbecues and bourbons. All right. So this one is not the single barrel that we had in the first couple of holes. This is what they call the Carmel Malt Mash Bill number 4. All right, came out of Rick House number 2, and it was dumped on 23, and it is 116.6 by proof, and It is out of, it's a batch of 10 barrels. All right, this caramel malt means that there's a bit of a malted aspect to it, and normally malt gives off a chocolatey vibe, and so we're going to see right here. All right, and on the other tea, after the other one hits off, we are going to have Old Pepper Rye bottled in Bond. Old Pepper has probably one of the unique histories in the world of whiskey. So James E. Pepper, a third generation distiller whose father was actually distilling during the Revolutionary War. Now, his father, James Pepper's father, died suddenly and left him very young in charge, and it didn't work out. Now, he actually had connections with Colonel E.H. Taylor, who at that particular point in time was not involved in the whiskey era other than providing a loan to James Pepper. Now, he came once the cool part about this history, and it just keeps going, and I will keep it very short, is that the original site that James Pepper that was trying to get started, that Colonel Taylor collected on, is now where Woodford Reserve now sits. So there's all these interconnections with all this stuff, right? So James E. Pepper goes into Lexington, and he starts at the time the most advanced distillery of its kind, and is just taking off like a shot. Now, James E. Pepper is very bombastic. He is running with the Rockefellers the whole 9 yards. And he's making 1776. That his father and his grandfather got kind of a homage to his grandfather, and so they're doing very, very well with it. And what we found out when we did this tour is that it's quite possibly one of the first sponsored sporting events kind of businesses for whiskey way back in the day. Now, okay, that's all nice old story. This is actually a younger distillery as well. The Pepper brand was dormant or forgotten for at least 50 years. And the people that now have it have done historical references, they've done the reviews, and they now have the distillery on the original piece of property where the last one was done. So it actually gets to claim distillery number 10, I believe is what it is. And so this is really, really nice. So, okay, this is a rye. It is a bottled in bond. We all know about bottled in bond. It has to be at least 4 years. Got to be in the same distilling season, and it has to be in a federally bonded warehouse. And it's at 50 APV or 100 proof. And I was looking to see whether or not it would tell me what the mixture is, and it does not. So we're going to go find out. All right, so they've been sitting here long enough. Of course, you know what we're going to do. We're going to give them a nose. They get points on the nose, just like on match play. They get points for the palate, just like on the one-on-one, or not the match player, the 4-ball. And then they also get the uniqueness, which is basically like foursome. So that's where we're trying to mimic it around. All righty. So we've given it enough air, both sides. Let's start off with James E. Pepper on the nose. Now the first inclination here is kind of fruity, not super sweet fruit, but more, like the fruit kind of tang that you get from a peach or a pear, something along that lines. You do get a bit of a kind of a, you do get a bit of a brown sugary note, and then followed in with a very, very faint rye spice note or a grain note. And that one just a hint of cherry. So I might imagine as this thing opens up, it's going to evolve even more. All right, to hard truth. And it's just exactly what you think from a malt. Now, I'm not adverse to malted drinks. I started off in Scotch, so I'm quite used to it. This is not as layered as the pepper. It is very even keeled, and it does have that Scotch-ish kind of vibe coming off of it. There it is. Now we're starting to see some of the sweetness come off of it. And again, I'm getting that almost that peach-like fruitiness. The grain. And there's another note in here. Maybe just a heavier grain, more of an earthy tone. And that's not uncommon with that malted stuff. All right. So if we're going to go and we're going to give the nose to anything, we're going to give it to the pepper bottle just because of the different layers and how it evolved in just this short layer of time in order just what we're doing right here. Now this one has been open a little bit longer than this one has. And now this one's starting to evolve a little bit. I think just getting a little bit warmer. There's some brown sugars. Maybe even the typical caramel note you would get off of a bourbon. Yep, so they're very, very close. So let's start with the nose on this one. First sip of the day, we're going to allow that one to acclimate just a little bit, and then we'll get right to it. The initial I get is it's a very punchy on the front of the nose, and it's kind of in that tilting between being drying and or oily. I think it wants to be really oily, but it has a drying concept in it, and then it gives you that Kentucky hug, or it's a very strong finish. There, that's better. After you get that first one where you get acclimated, it's not nearly as punchy on the front. You still do have a finish that is, it gets you, it lets you know that you're there. The middle is now a little bit more oily, and then it has a finish. But the finish, as far as what we're talking about, when we talk about complexities of flavors and taste, I'm not seeing a whole lot of that. It's not an unpopular drink by any shape of the imagination, just that it doesn't follow suit in what you nosed. That's really what we're looking at here. Okay, on to the Hard Truth Malted. Again, very calm, very easy on the nose. Again, it didn't evolve as much as one would think, but it's just very, we'll say, calming. It's not too tart, not too sweet, not too bright. It is just really nice. Yeah, so this one, the palate follows the nose. And when you get that malted, you get that almost chocolatey, malted, like in a malted shake kind of flavor, right? And it doesn't attack you on the front. It just lets you know, hey, you're going to be drinking something very, very nice. So we're going to go with that. The flavor on this, it takes, and it goes all the way to the finish, right? It goes all the way to the finish. It's very, very nice. This one, I would say, is one heck of a rye. Yeah, it's still right there. Now, even on the second sip, it reproduces itself. So you get this nice, gentle getting into on the front. You get this oily sensation, good texture with a little bit of the malted note. You're not picking up too much in the way of a grain. And then you have the lingering finish, which isn't overbearing. It's not killing you. Very, very well done. So as the way that as the palate would go, I'm going to give the nod to the Hard Truth Malted. Is very, very, very nice. Alrighty, so now the last bit is the uniqueness. Now they both have their own backstory. James E. Pepper's history, by far and away, is one of the best that's in the industry, and of course that's unique. The fact that it's sitting on its own property is unique in its own right. But it got started, if we started at the same time, these companies basically started at the same time. Okay, and I have visited both of these, so I get a little bit of personal information on this, or personal knowledge on it. Now, on this one is, this is this like old school, I love the idea of it, the traditional whiskey bottle, where these guys are standing out and trying to make themselves known. And their original is the #3 rye in the world. They tell you that. And this is distilled with the finest grains and water by Indiana sweet mash pioneers. Now that's the other part, is sweet mash versus sour mash. And those are two different ones we can explain later. The cork on this is kind of funny in that it's regular cork on the real cork on the top, but synthetic cork on the bottom. That's unique in its own special way. So as far as uniqueness goes, in the distilleries, I would say the backstory really goes to James E. Pepper. However, when you're talking about what you've got going on at the distilleries right at this moment in time, the Lexington distillery, they're going to, the distilling part and the bottling part of there, it's going to have to go somewhere else to be into a rack house to be held and stored for a while, because there's just no space, because it has an urban redevelopment going on down there, and it is a very good place to go visit. If you have an opportunity, I recommend this highly. However, but from you get to go see that, and that's it. Now on this one, these guys have gone over the top. They've purchased their 300 acres. They've have inquired several different unique styles of tours. The ATV tour, which we have taken, the Tiki tour, which we have taken, and the Distillery tour, which we have taken, are all in their own right unique and very personable and very nice and very well thought out. Right, we'll call it very well thought out, and their layout is just something to behold. So again, if you get anywhere near Nashville, Indiana, which is about an hour and some change south of Indianapolis, and you just want to get rural, this is the place to go and do that. So I'm going to give the nod on this one to the uniqueness. I'm going to give it to Hard Truth, with just edging out James E. Pepper in that one. So the winner of hole 6, and it's basically the difference between a lipping out a 6-footer or dropping an 8-footer. They dropped the 8-footer and they lipped out the 6-foot, and it was very, very close. So moving on will be the Carmel and the Carmel Malt from Hard Truth, and we will see how it fares against the winners of the other ones that are going on. So if you like what you saw, please let me know what you think. Tell me if you like this particular format where ryes go head to head, because these are ryes that I've collected. They have nothing to do with popularity. They're just places I've gone and said, oh yeah, I like these ryes, and we'll go from there. So again, if you do like it, please like, subscribe, and as always, we always want you to save your pars and share your pours.